For those of you who listen to the podcast, he was a podcast guest on episode 8, and today we're going to have him on to talk about, how can you reach the finish line in your lives? Because I think a lot of people they have those challenges, whether it's on the personal side or whether it's the professional side. But Peter, being a very successful serial entrepreneur, definitely he's going to be able to kind of work the kinks out and hopefully give you some tactics that can really kind of transform strategy and be able to help you reach the finish line much faster. So as before, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on Peter's background because we covered that on episode 8, but as a quick preview, he shared the stage with Sir Richard Branson, Bill Clinton, Tony Robbins. He's the founder and CEO of Space Energy, which is a project to put solar panels in space to provide clean and renewable energy to all of the masses. And also, Peter has been hailed as the extreme entrepreneur. And if you look at Peter's life, I think he's pretty extreme myself. So, Peter, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to see if we can log in on a video because everything seems good here.
Okay.
So should, with a bit of luck, by the magic of everything, get things moving shortly. But other than that, great to be back with you.
Great. So, Peter, I think what a lot of people struggle with, and perhaps you can just rip this whole thing apart, because this is something you do. You train on Tony Robbins. You have a lot of experience when it comes to personal development, when it comes to psychology. A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, but typically people only see the successes of most people. So for example, a lot of people have seen your video as far as your house and kind of your tour, kind of your daily routines, and I'm quite sure people follow other people when they see their cars and their fancy stuff and all that, but they don't see what leads up to it. They just see all of the good things and they think, oh, well, I can do that. And they get started, and usually it only takes a few obstacles for them to stumble upon before they figure out, well, this is not really practical for me. So what would you say, Peter? What would be the mentality that an aspiring or struggling entrepreneur needs to prepare if they want to be successful?
Okay, well, it looks like we may have video back on. So I'm hoping
you can... Perfect. Peter, perfect. I see you now.
Okay, and wonderful question to start with, because the starting point for every single part of the movie of your life is instigated and starts with mindset. Everything is mindset. There is nothing that can be put in front of you as an excuse that cannot be solved with mindset rather than resources. So everybody focuses on resources. Oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the education, I don't have the experience, I don't have the idea, I don't have the latest subscription to super app, whatever it may be. And it's all bullshit. It is a complete self-talk escape route for covering up the reality of the situation, which is essentially, I'm too scared to step into the level of uncertainty required to go figure it out because my passion is not higher than my fear. My reason why I really want to do this is not bigger than my comfort zone. My willingness to stay in bed is stronger than my willingness to do whatever it takes. And it's always a question one has to ask and be honest with the answer. Is it really resources, or is it a lack of resourcefulness? And the one thing I know in years of working with startup entrepreneurs, people that faced against every odds, successful entrepreneurs that lost everything, all of the possible examples you could imagine at any level, is that there isn't a particular time that you could ever point a finger and say, oh, well, it was just unlucky. No, the business owner played a role in it every single time based upon their attitude to what they perceived the situation of bad luck was. So right. If you understand that there is a path, there is a methodology, and it does not begin with a certificate from a educational institution that validates your ability to swing the bat at life. Instead, it's about you and your ability to get resourceful. If you don't have the money, can you find a way? Absolutely. There's way too many thousands, tens of thousands of people that have gone before you that can kick the legs under that excuse any day of the week, in any scenario, at any point in history, in any economy, with any business idea. Case closed. Next question.
I like that, Peter. So I think that leads on to the next thing. So people say, okay, well, uncertainty. All right. Well, it's something you're talking about a lot too, because you talk about increasing your ability to live with uncertainty. What would be a primer? How would a person be able to do that? I'm quite sure, it's kind of an art or skill to develop, but how can a person start increasing their comfortability of living with uncertainty?
Well, the real misnomer is so many people live with uncertainty already. Yeah, they've already built the muscle, they're just scared of it. Yeah, because they're focused on clinging to what little levels of the illusion of certainty they still have, rather than embrace the fact that most people have been living with uncertainty their whole life. Most people have lots of financial uncertainty. Well, great. Use that as a way to motivate you to swing the bat, rather than focus on the little bit of scarcity that you're still trying to cling hold of. If you're on a desert island and you've got to swim or stay there, and that island's getting smaller, guess what? At some point, you're going to go swimming. You may as well do it now.
I like that, Peter. Perhaps you can, kind of quantify that, kind of dig deeper into that. What would be maybe, some practical steps that a person can do? Because when we say uncertainty, like really, the underlying cause of the uncertainty is fear, and it's usually fear of failure. And most people, if they fail enough times, they give up because they feel like they won't be successful in the future. What would you say to a person like that, Peter? How can a person really kind of build that tenacity to be able to persevere through uncertainty? What would you say, what would be your best advice that you can give to that person to hopefully they can mitigate mitigate any type of things that may lead them to quit? What would you say to that, Peter?
Well, let's chunk back a little bit and deal with this uncertainty thing. Yeah, as you say, it's always fear-based. That's it. I'm scared of, fill in the blank. But the blank always has a seed. It has a foundational point. There's many levels of awareness that get covered up for that, but the foundational point is almost always, I'm scared that I won't be good enough. I'm scared of what people will think. I'm scared that I won't be loved. I'm scared that I won't fulfill my potential. All of that leads back, all roads lead to Rome. I'm scared of the fear that I'm not enough. And so I'd rather cling on to the illusion of what I currently have so I can shine the torch on that, rather than embrace the level of uncertainty. So the best way to get over it is to go where your fear is. It's counterintuitive. One thing I'll state is that every emotion unresisted usually ends up in joy. But most people perpetuate the fear with the resistance. It is the resistance to the emotion that allows it to have the grip over you. If you're scared of flying and you get on an airplane, you're going to be experiencing the exact same emotional messages in the brain as if the plane was falling out of the sky. Your brain doesn't tell you that, but you sat there gripping hold of the seat for 9 hours or whatever long the flight is, worried about what's going to happen. And worrying about what hasn't happened yet is like paying interest on a debt you haven't signed for yet. Right? It's pointless. So right. If you can understand that, well, okay, maybe it's a valid fear, but why don't I just choose to do that when the plane is actually falling out of the sky? Then it'll be validated. And until then, why would I torture myself with stuff that hasn't happened yet based on a fabrication of anticipation? Most people are scared of going bankrupt. Well, guess what? You're experiencing the exact same emotion as if you just got your notice. But your brain doesn't tell you that.
I like that, Peter. So basically, fear is essentially kind of if we look at kind of the monitor at the hospital when like basically essentially fear is just kind of one large frequency, and whether it's, as you said before, whether it's a person getting an eviction notice or a person getting actually evicted, it's the same feeling. So I like how you put that, Peter, and I think that's very important because I feel like people put fears in certain categories. If I get divorced, if I lose my job, or if this happens, or if that happens. But essentially, fear is just one frequency. We got radio frequency, stuff like that, but it's just one frequency. As you stated, Peter, whether a person gets an eviction though, a person gets evicted, it still comes from the same feeling, and it's still as intense. Okay, let's shift over. Okay, let's say now the person has taken their first step, because some people will, most people, I feel like they will take the first step and they will step out and say, you know what, I am going to live with uncertainty. Okay, now what would you say to the person who has, several obstacles that stumble upon? What would be the encouragement? What would be the motivation that you would give them, Peter, to be able to persevere?
Focus on adding value. You can never be unsuccessful if you ask the right questions, but you don't need to ask them to some guru or some mentor or some experienced player or some personality or what have you. And some of those can be useful, but essentially the questions you want to ask, you have the ultimate answer machine right now called your brain. And your brain will answer the question for you, but it's indifferent to the nature of the input. You ask a lousy question, you're going to get a lousy answer. What are the things that could go wrong? Guess what? You'll get a wonderful list. Great focus. Okay. It's like classic rich dad, poor dad. One dad says, we can't afford this. The other dad says, how can we afford this? One is a statement that closes off possibility. One opens up to possibility of seeking solution. The same IQ, same economy, same situation, but you're asking better questions. One of the best questions you can continually ask is, what ways can I continually add value to the people that I'm looking to serve in my new business venture or enterprise or relationship or what have you? Not from a martyr perspective, now please love me because I'm adding value, now please buy my product. That's bullshit. That's a trade-off. Instead of coming from an authentic place of being excited about being a channel of contribution, giving from your overflow, coming from a place of saying, please enjoy the abundance of what it is that I'm looking to provide. Do something unexpected. Look for opportunities to impress, to surprise, not for any other reason than it feels good to do it. You don't have an expectation around the fact that they should respond in kind. If they don't, they don't. That's their model of the world. But here's what I know. Just like taking risks and in dealing with uncertainty, history always has and always will favor the risk taker. Business always has and always will favor the person who adds value. It may not come back from a linear fashion. Oh, I really went to town to make that customer feel great and they still didn't buy something. Mean son of a bitch. No, start telling that story and you're in a horse trade. Right. Instead, your default program is, I'm just going to take care of all of the seeds in the garden. I'm going to water them, nourish them, make sure they got some. Something? Some are not going to sprout. Some are going to get eaten by the birds. Some are going to get choked by the weeds. Some, it doesn't matter. I know that if I just do what I'm meant to be doing, I'm going to have a pretty good flower bed at some level. And if you focus on that, you will never go out of business, providing you're not being lazy. Lazy doesn't mean, lazy can also mean I found a winning formula and so I'm just going to keep doing it. Because the needs of your clients change quickly. Loyalty these days can switch hands in a commercial break. So if you're constantly adding value, same in a relationship, if you're constantly seeking ways to make your partner feel magnificent for no other reason than it lights you up to do it, you've got a freaking awesome relationship. right? But
I would definitely agree with that.
if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not doing that because she didn't do that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I'll start acting nice when they start acting nice. Yeah, bullshit. That's a fast track to singledom, or worse still, being trapped in a relationship where you haven't got the courage to do anything other than think about your escape. Okay, so.
And one thing, Peter, that I want to kind of interject, because there was a previous interview I heard you listen to, and there was an analogy that you used. You kind of put a spin on the word "but," and I love the way you put that. And perhaps if you could share with our audience about that, because I feel like what happens is, a person may take the first step. Okay, they may take the first step in any venture and live with uncertainty. They don't know perhaps where the venture capitals come from, or the extra money, or sustainable income, or whatever else. They don't actually know where, but they do believe, they do have faith, and that's what initially gets them started. But I think this is a good segue until you talk about the but, and perhaps you could share more about that and tie that in.
Everybody wants to talk about the butt. Yeah, I got some funny looks when I first used this analogy, because I say, one of the defining characteristics of successful people is the shape of their butt. And and before everybody runs off to Fitness First and jumps on the Stairmaster, which isn't a bad thing either, by the way. What I mean by that is that the word "but" is a very interesting word, because we use it in two different categories. We can use it as an excuse, or we can use it as propulsion. It is a pivot point word. I would have a successful business, but I don't have the money. I would have a relationship, but I keep meeting the wrong people. Which, incidentally, one thing I found is that if you keep meeting the wrong people in the relationship, maybe it isn't them. So that is one way of being able to use your butt. But the best way to use your butt is different. It's like, well, I don't have the money to start a business, but I will find a way. I don't have somebody in my life right now, but I know if I show up as the best me I can be, I will attract the person who most wants to be with me. It's a it's a pivot point word. So check your butt, because if you come to a place whereby you have embraced the level of uncertainty, you've stepped on the board, you're playing the game. If you don't get that part right, you'll start shrinking back, stepping up to the plate. I've just bought and had acquired two beautiful little Jack Russell puppies, and they're chalk and cheese. Different personalities. One's called Archie. He's a little character, and one's called Bella, and she's a great character too. But Archie's the smaller one. He was kind of the last one out. They're siblings. Bella's a little bit of a let's just call her. Let's be kind and call her a foodie. She's got the other kind of stuff to talk about. So we have horses in the paddock here next to the house, and so I take them for a walk in the paddock, and the horse comes over, and little Bella, who's the bigger one, goes, oh my God, panics and runs away, yelping with her tail between the legs. Because this huge, you can imagine what a horse would look like if you're a Jack Russell puppy. Now Archie is smaller. Archie looks at the horse, and he's like, he runs up to the horse, stands proud on his legs, and starts barking as if he's saying, hey, dude, I'm bigger than you. Same scenario, different size of heart. And I say to people, I'm 6'3", and people come up and say, oh, I'd love to be tall. And I say, well, you only think you're smaller than me until you stand on your heart. We all have a huge amount of potential, courage, love. And if you tap into those resources, the rest of it will find you. And the other thing I would suggest is, and this is counterintuitive to entrepreneurs, but bear with me. I would also invite people to future pace, only temporarily, we're not going to live here, but future pace a failure in advance. And the reason that I ask people to do that is because we tend to look at our goals, our outcomes, our destinations, or the outcome of a business meeting or a deal, or getting funding or not, and we place so much expectation, hope, desire, importance on these things that we treat it as if it's life and death. It's like, oh my God, I've got to get this thing. Yeah, I've got to have the thing, or I've got to close the deal. I've got to get this funding. What if just in advance of that, you were to future pace it, saying, what happened if you didn't? Because what you'll probably realize is that, well, you know something? If it doesn't happen, then it's not that bad. I'm not actually going to have my arms and legs cut off. Yeah, I'm not actually going to get thrown into a position where I can't feed myself. I'm not actually going to, And you know something? If I lose my house and have to live somewhere smaller, I lose my house and live somewhere smaller for now. I swung the bat. I've got more stories for the grandkids, and I will build back up. Why? Because the odds are in my favor. History always has and always will favor the risk taker if you're focused on adding value, not on what you can take out of the game. So,
right. So it's a sense of perseverance, and really that's what makes a difference. That's what makes or breaks the entrepreneur. And I like how you talk about that. I like how you talked about your dogs and kind of compared that as far as their interactions with the horse. And I think that's excellent, Peter. And one thing about you, Peter, is that you're the real deal. So it's not like you're just a speaker that just goes around and speaks for a living, but you also, as a serial entrepreneur, you've created multiple businesses, you sold them, you have the social enterprise that's very exciting, and hopefully, majority of us want to see you to be successful with it. So you basically come from both vantage points. So not only do you talk about the psychology, but you actually live it through your business experiences. So I could really appreciate that, Peter, from someone, as opposed to someone who just, they just get paid to only speak and really have no actual experience in the trenches to be able to relate to their audience. I like that, Peter.
I appreciate that, Callum. And one thing that's important to remember as well is that, I've lived in the smaller house. It's not right saying, well, it's okay for you to say that, with all your flash cars and places and stuff. And I'm like, well, nice. I know what it's like not to be able to afford rent. I know what it's like, to be able to lose everything and have to pick yourself up and swing the bat again. And that's where, the character of the entrepreneur is fostered. I know that if I lost everything tomorrow, it'd be a damn good excuse to go again. I can't take it with me. What am I going to do? I'm sticking it all in my coffin. And I say the Egyptians tried that, and all that happened is we dug it up and stole it, right? So if you have a situation whereby you don't take it too seriously because you're not focused on lack, you're not focused on tying your self-worth to your net worth. If you do that, you're always going to be avoiding risk because it triggers the fear that you're not enough if you lose money. And money's only one small measure of keeping score on how much value you add in any specific snapshot of time. It is still all subject, as everything in the material world is, to the law of impermanence. So just because you can accumulate everything, the game here is to try and accumulate as much money as I can before I die. Well, guess what? You get to the end of the game only to realize too late that nobody else was actually playing. Yeah. And yes, it's nice to be comfortable. Yes, it's nice to have it, but that's a reflection of a consistent underlying level of value that you can add. Again, money is a byproduct or a consequence of adding value. So if those people on a consistent basis are asking, or looking in the mirror thinking, I don't have enough money, the responsibility is really to start looking at the truth, which is, okay, if money is a byproduct or a consequence of how much value I've added, it's just an arbitrary medium of exchange to measure value, and I don't have enough of it because I've been chasing it, what does that presuppose? It presupposes I haven't added enough value. And that's a pill most people aren't prepared to swallow because they then start coming up with language patterns around, well, I'm a good person. I work hard all my life. Well, working hard doesn't mean, say, adding value. You could work 40 hours a week, in a factory, making minimum wage, but that's because the job that you're doing is worth minimum wage. So why are you complaining you don't have enough money?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Peter, because I guess you're. I wouldn't say we're the same age, but you're old enough to be my big brother. You got about a good, I think, about 12 years on me, but. one thing that I've noticed here is like, especially because right now here I'm in Mexico, and I really advise or suggest a lot of new entrepreneurs to actually think globally, like go abroad, because there's a lot of business opportunities. Often, many people that try to start businesses in the U.S. they aren't successful, but they duplicate the same model down here, and they have tremendous success. But I think one thing probably that the viewers are very interested in is perhaps, Peter, let's start, because I know you built and sold multiple businesses, but let's start with your first business that was the most successful. And then I'm not sure if that was the one that you had the fitness gyms, but maybe if not, you could cover that later. But start with that most successful business, because I think one challenge that people have, Peter, is especially marketing. That's one challenge. People say, well, okay, I started a business, I'm incorporated, but I don't have any money for marketing, So maybe it'll be great for you to share kind of how you got started and how you was able to gradually build up your brand.
Well, I appreciate that. And the fitness clubs came many years later. I mean, that's now 110 clubs, tens of millions of dollars a year turnover. I sold out of that business a while back, but they're doing really, really well. But again, we started that with virtually nothing. But what I don't want to do is get too confused in terms of time frames, because when I started business, there was no internet. And I say to people that back then it was a lot harder in a way, because you needed a certain amount of capex, you needed infrastructure. It was a lot more dependent upon high-level outlay. Today, you talk about starting businesses abroad. That's thinking too small. I would encourage anybody and everybody at this point, as a startup entrepreneur, to start their business in space. And let's think galactic here. And when I say space, I mean cyberspace. I started my business in mail order. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed mail order was because as a 17-year-old kid, working out of his bedroom, I didn't need a premises. I didn't need a premises. I didn't need footfall. If you're relying on footfall when there's 1 billion people on Facebook, you're in Disneyland. So if you can start a business whereby you've got access to the world with a push of a button, then you're living in a time in history that entrepreneurs have dreamed about for centuries. Mm-hmm. So right now, I don't have the ability to market, is the same thing we talked about at the beginning of the interview. I don't have the resourcefulness. I teach the Millionaire Business School, which I'm hoping you're going to come to at some point. I teach 2 days, 1 day of psychology and 2 days of teaching people how to grow their business exponentially 10x without spending a penny, by mastering certain key fundamental skills. And one of those is a highly effective sales and marketing that takes $0. Virtually. I mean, if you've got a few dollars, then that's great, but essentially $0. And the fastest way to move forward without a budget is through partnering. It's through joint ventures. It's through capitalizing on existing momentum. For example, if there's, and I'll use the MBS, the Millionaire Business School, as a classic example. For example, if I go to people who have a target audience of entrepreneurs, of people that are looking to either start their business but don't have the resources, or frustrated entrepreneurs that have kind of hit a glass ceiling. And there's so many people like yourself. Kallen's got a podcast, they've got channels, they've got people. And I go to them and say, hey, listen, why don't we do a joint venture? Why don't you offer to your listeners or your list or your product or service a bundled ticket to the Millionaire Business School at a reduced cost, so you're adding massive value to your list. If I was to give you tickets, for example, let's say half price, because people would buy one of your particular goods, products, services, or courses, and as a result of that, they get half price, and they've suddenly got $500 worth of instant value. You look brilliant in their eyes because they've got a value add, and I get people that are coming into the deal, and I've offset my marketing cost by giving it to you to add value to them. How much did that cost me, and how much did it cost you?
0.
How many people could we put in the room?
A lot.
Yeah, how much value can we add to those people?
Tremendous value.
Yeah, and that's a 20-second strategy. Yeah, that's one vertical market. Yeah, I could focus on being able to go to, anyone listening. Yeah, it's easy to do. Who would benefit from your product and service? Who is your demographic? Now, the challenge is most people don't know who their demographic is. Yeah, or they're not specific enough around it. I know that entrepreneurs and frustrated entrepreneurs are my ideal demographic because I can change their life in 3 days in a heartbeat, right? With the people that have come out and consistently rated this the #1 course as well. So I'm focused on that. I don't focus on blue chip companies. I don't focus on salespeople. I don't focus on you sort of people sitting there wondering if they want to do something with their life or not. That's not my game. Yeah, I know my market. So if you know who your market is, write down, identify your average client. What do you know about them? Your demographic, your psychographic. Yeah, where do they live? What do they earn? What is their hobbies? What kind of papers do they read? What profile? I mean, everything is scientific around this now because the data profiling industry is massive. Now, there's an easy way to do it, and that is if you have more than 200 clients, it's about the minimum number, and you've already got 200 clients, have them profiled. Stop guessing. And the database profiling company will come back and tell you exactly who's buying your product, so you don't have to guess anymore. And let's say 80% of your clients read the Wall Street Journal and 20% read Business Daily. Then if you've got the Wall Street Journal and Business Daily pitching for advertising, you know which one you're going to go and speak to. But rather than guesswork on who's trying to sell you on their numbers and circulation and readership. Yeah, you get the idea. Right?
I got it, Peter. That's great. And I would definitely advise too, because I mean, that's a great idea how you talk about, basically having joint partners or affiliate partners and how it's basically a zero cost form of marketing. I think that's great. One challenge that I think people have is, or one challenge I think people are disappointed by is they may see somebody like myself or somebody like you or somebody like us, a person that they admire, and sometimes it could come off as disingenuous because it's sort of like, okay, let me be your affiliate, but there's no prior relationship that has been set in place. And I think that a lot of times influencers like myself and like yourself, at least I do, I can only speak for myself, I do get annoyed when I get, tens and tens of emails saying, oh, hey, we should work together. Hey, we should work together. And I don't even know who they were before their email. So what would you suggest, let's say, an aspiring new entrepreneur, someone who's excited, someone who's tenacious, what would you suggest to start building that relationship so in the future that influencer could be more open to working with them?
It comes back again to focusing on adding value. Don't approach it with what's in it for me. Don't approach it on a horse trade mentality where I say, listen, I'll do this, you do that. Hey, look, this works. Because the old school mentality is B2B, B2C. Business to business, business to consumer. Well, guess what? This is the 21st century. We don't do B to anything. Right? This is H to H. It's human to human. And people are people, and people will buy from people before they buy their products, ideas, and concepts. So if you're if you do your homework, look at who would be potential joint venture partners. And again, it doesn't have to be a list yet. It could be a whole different level of understanding how to add value. And find out who they are, find out who shares your values. Okay, and then find out what is the best way that you could approach these people to serve their interests, their needs, and the needs of their customers the best. And if they feel that you're focusing more on what you can do for them than what you're trying to get them to do for you, you've got a relationship starting point. And so rather than just cold email and spam 2,000 people saying, hey, look, you guys are all great, let's hook up. No, do your homework. Get in touch. Figure out what is it that you can do to sincerely bring some genuine and authentic value to them. And if they say no, be okay with that. It may not be right time.
Yeah, so it's about I really like that, Peter. I'm sorry.
It's about
I just want to say
authenticity.
Yeah, and I really like that, Peter. And sometimes I really like how your message is so succinct, but I ask you a lot of the question. I'll ask you a lot of the questions that have the same answer for the benefit of the viewers, because often, they ask a different question, but essentially it's the same answer. And basically, I kind of like to evoke that from you as far as, because really, essentially, you say, it's kind of all wrapped one. Really, it comes from the same problem. While we may have different questions about it, or we may want to phrase it differently, essentially, it's the same solution. So, you may laugh at this, but another question that I do try to give people some solutions, but I always tell them, as you as well, Peter, that really is all in here. But one question that people are probably going to ask, and we are going to have a session for Q&A towards the end of this video cast, but people have the challenge with funding. As a startup entrepreneur, they say, well, if I want to build a business, I need money. How do I attract venture capitalists? How do I get accepted into an incubator? Or how do I get accepted into an accelerator? Or how do I, attract more people to my crowdfunding campaign? What would you say to those new entrepreneurs or struggling entrepreneurs, Peter, who desire to seek funding?
First, check your belief. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you believe that that's the only thing you need to, for your golden ticket, then you're doomed from the start. If you're looking to say, I need money to start a business, that's the first fundamental misnomer. You don't need money to start a business. I've started most of my businesses with zero capital, zero money, zero overdraft, zero credit lines, right? By focusing on, again, how do I add value? Now, if you do want to raise money because you've got specific tasks you want to do or specific things, for a start, avoid at all costs venture capital unless you are seriously going after an IPO listing deal that needs a lot of lipstick on the pig, but you will sell out of your dream very quickly to try and meet their criteria, because they don't care about your deal, they care about their return. But if you're going for like crowdfunding, which has been very successful for many people, if you're going for sort of incubator or what we call Series A, or even prior to that, friends and family, angel round, then again, as an investor myself in many different deals, what I look at specifically is first and foremost the people. I don't back deals, I back people. Because the deal could be great, and with the wrong person, forget it. I can fix holes in deals. So if the deal isn't great and needs a bit of advice from a seasoned entrepreneur, myself, or even one of my mentors, then we can provide that. But if you've got somebody who belongs on the Muppets running the gig, that's not going to work. So if there's someone who starts to cry at the first sign of rejection, someone who has the poor belief system mentality. I want someone who's passionate, that's driven to build a dream no matter what, and win, lose, whether we get involved with someone else, nothing's talking them out of it. Right now, again, it's got to make commercial sense. So what you want to do is try and mitigate the gap between where you are and the profitability. And there's a lot that people can do before the business starts to actually put that in place. So if you've got, for example, a widget that you want to bring to the market, who is the target market? Where is your focus groups? What is the feedback? What have you done as a result of that feedback to make it better? How have you retested and validated that? And do you have any letters of intent from companies, people, influencers that say that if you do X, then they will do Y? And all you need to do X is some funding. Then as an investor, I'm starting to see that, hang on a minute, they've done the hard work. They've done the groundwork. All they need is some funding to bridge them from A to B, but at B, they've already got stuff in place. I'm not saying I'm going to fund something, cross my fingers and hope that if they get to B, there'll be something waiting there to figure it out. Right? Because business plans are essentially useless. All a business plan will do is tell me that you've done a little bit of homework, you've got some level of idea about what it is you think you're doing, but essentially, I've never seen a business plan fail on paper, because they don't fail on paper, but businesses fail. So, yeah, I've got to be realistic and say that all business plans follow the same essential principle. They overestimate income, they underestimate costs, at best they're a guess, and at worst they're fraud. Yeah, welcome to the world of business plans.
Right. So, and basically, we're going to circle back around with that, and because I really like your kind of prior business experience, especially working with those fitness gyms. You kind of mentioned that here and there in other interviews, and perhaps you could outline that. But just for the viewers, there's different paths of entrepreneurship. Like Peter himself. Peter is a serial entrepreneur, essentially, where he built businesses, and his exit strategy is either to, I guess, sell them or merge with a bigger company. And then you have social entrepreneurs, and where it's more of the model is based on how can you help your community, whether it's poverty, whether it's environmental, whatever that is. But really, the motive of profit is not that strong because the passion is much stronger, but eventually they are looking to make a profit. And then you have lifestyle entrepreneurs, which I would consider myself, is where you basically it's a business where it could be a one-man business. I do freelance, certain things I have people to do for me, but for some people, there's a guy named John Lee Dumas. He makes six figures off of podcasting. There's another gentleman. His name is Tim Smoyer. He makes six figures off of YouTube alone. So there's different models. Peter talked about earlier about venture capital and how you should avoid that. And that's kind of really that's more so based on if you want to be a serial entrepreneur. But there are multiple paths. And what Peter's doing right now with the space energy, would you say that's sort of like a social enterprise, Peter?
Let me bring you up to speed on what's happening with that, because it's been a while since I guess we touched base. Space energy was, I guess, the epitome of taking on probably the biggest project you could ever take on and swinging the bat as hard as you can. And essentially, it was the commercialization of a technology that allows you to put solar panels in space and broadcast that clean energy back to Earth 24/7, on demand in real time. And it's a game-changing technology. I got involved several years ago. I put in several $1 million. We raised some funds, and we got it to a point where we've essentially handed the baton over to the United Nations. And again, this is a classic example of being able to be flexible to the business model. The more we saw the potential here, we've also, as a company, and I'm very proud of this, through the efforts that we did and putting it together, the deal together, I've also got space-based solar power on the national energy policy of China, of Japan, of India, all of which are pursuing their own research and development projects in space-based solar, based on a lot of the work that we did and a lot of the awareness we brought to the table and a lot of the essential good work that my team did. So I'm very proud of that. But to look at it in a more realistic cold light of day, the size of the project, what it grew to, was something that it required international governmental funding. And so I've been working for quite a while with senior ambassador of the UN United Nations, and I'm very proud to say that it's now a championed cause under the ambassador's stewardship to really put together a multi-country discipline funded think tank for R&D to develop that technology. Now that I'm all over, because again, it's not about me. I'm not trying to look for the glory and be on the front cover of Forbes magazine as the pioneer of space-based solar. That was never the reason I got involved. I got involved because I have a certain skill set, and that skill set came into play because I saw so many scientists at NASA knew that this could be done and could be built, but they would sit across the guys at Wall Street and they want to explain about attenuation losses from orbit and different levels of microwave connection and broadcast and rec tenor, And the Wall Street guys are scratching their head saying, well, hang on, no, we speak the language of CapEx, balance sheet, return on investors. Yeah. So there was no commercial bridge between the scientists and the funding and the Wall Street guys. There was no business plan that was put together. So we put the first commercially viable business plan together for space-based solar. And that's what's accelerated, in my opinion, the development of that for humanity. And I'm very proud of that. But when I was approached and worked with the UN on it, it's just a faster way to get it to market. And if that means that I've got to hand over the baton, I was okay to do that. So that's where space energy is. It was an exciting part of my life, but now I'm watching it sort of take over at a global scale. I planted the seed and watered it, nurtured it, and now it's being tended by a different gardener.
Right. Great. So more or less you would say that's more like a social enterprise, Peter? Would you say that's accurate? I mean, it sounds like you invested a lot into it, but they see a return, but it didn't matter because your passion was so involved in it that you still got the same reward from it. Would you say that's accurate?
Let's talk about social enterprise for a second, because it's been a bit of a buzzword for a couple of years now, and the leading educator on social entrepreneurship in the world, a guy called Professor Philip Santos, who's head of social entrepreneurship at INSEAD, one of the top business schools in the world. And Felipe is a good friend of mine. We've spent a lot of time together, and I've got a take on it for myself, and that is this: that social entrepreneurship now, there's no real dividing line. It's 21st century entrepreneurship, because, as I said, if you're not focusing on adding value, you're not in business. What business are you in? I'll tell you exactly what business you're in. You're in the business of solving problems and reducing pain. That's it. Because if you're not solving problems and reducing pain, then guess what? You're not in business. No one's going to buy whatever it is that you're selling. So that could be, Microsoft could be a social business because it's solving huge amounts of issues in business for the productivity that allow people to go out and do good things. Just because you've got a Save the Whales kind of gig going on, that's cleaning up water in Africa and everything else, yes, great, fully endorse that. I've done a lot of work and charity work in Africa, continue to do so. But by saying, oh, this is a social enterprise, all businesses are social enterprises. Now, some operate on different scales because, depending on the size of the problem you're trying to mitigate. But essentially, you're trying to solve pain. Now, if the pain you're solving is contributing to some of the issues, then I've got that. If you're feeding people's need for consumerism without adding a huge amount of value at the cost of screwing up the planet, that's a different game. But that's phasing out. That old model is phasing out. With regards to
Peter. I like how you put that. I think you're spot on in that we got 21st century entrepreneurship. It is social entrepreneurship in a way. For example, like what I do. I want people to reach the finish line in their careers, whether it's for them to some people, they prefer that lifestyle, but maybe find a job that's more ideal or aligns with their passions or interests, or whether it's to become an entrepreneur. And I guess the way you put it, if you look at that, that is a form of social entrepreneurship. Is I am helping people, and at my website, I offer a lot of free things. Via my YouTube channel, these podcast episodes, these type of events. So that's a good point. That's a very good point, Peter. I haven't looked at it that way. And but yeah, so let's go into let's go into the next step as we was talking about. So again, we talk about serial entrepreneurship, but as you mentioned, social entrepreneurship is pretty much 21st century entrepreneurship nowadays. And then for the viewers, like I said, we do have lifestyle entrepreneurship, and where like I said, you basically it's just you, and where basically it's not a business that requires a lot of employees. It is a business that could be sustained by yourself. You might want to hire some freelancers if you feel that it makes it more convenient for you. But as I shared earlier about those examples of people who have six-figure businesses just with a simple model like podcasting or through a YouTube channel. For myself, I'm kind of spread out across the board. I have the podcast, I have the YouTube channel, I have the book, which has been a bestseller in the U.S. and Canada, and then also invest my money. I passive real estate investments that I do as well. I think the next thing, Peter, that we should go into, because maybe you could help people out with, or maybe you could put a different take on lifestyle entrepreneurship, because you have TV shows like Shark Tank. There's a big one that airs on BBC. I can't think of the name at the moment, but you have those type of TV shows that's kind of like that's for startups, but usually it's kind of based on the serial entrepreneurship model. Maybe there's people out there, Peter, who says, well, I don't want to build a business that big. I want something, like a laptop business. And like I said, I do talk about that, but I'm curious, Peter, what would you share with them? What would be some ideas that you could give to people to be like a lifestyle entrepreneur?
Well, again, first things first. Yeah, before you take the leap of getting into building something, anything, you ask yourself the question, what is my outcome? Mm-hmm. Why am I doing this? Are you doing it to be able to escape a job that you can't stand because it's not something that you were born for? Mm-hmm. And is it to also step into a place where you don't have the responsibility of trying to find wages for 200 people on Friday? Is it something that you're quite happy to do to generate a certain level of income? Or is it something that you want to do to help change the world? Your why is the most important thing. So what is it that you want? Because everything is available. One thing I love about living at this time in human history is that no matter where you are, what you've got, what you've done, your story, your history, your biography, it doesn't matter. A new future is always available. Mm-hmm. And you get to choose that. So choose wisely, because it's like going to the movie store. Although now that's not a business you want to be in, it's all online. But if you go to you're going to contribute or spend an hour or two of your time on an evening watching a movie, it's an hour and a half of your time. You want to choose a decent movie. If you're going to spend the next year and a half, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of your time building something, make sure it's worth building. It's what you want to do, not what you think is going to give you the most certainty. Now, again, for some people, they get off on the fact that their cause is, I want to help as many people as possible, and here's a way to do it. Some people are like, I just want to get out of this lousy, stinking job because my boss is an a-hole, and I've got to do something with my life more than what I'm doing right now before I shoot myself. Right? Some people say, listen, I just want to provide for my family a level of lifestyle where we can eat off the left side of the menu, not the right side of the menu. Everything is available, all based upon the amount of uncertainty you're willing to include and the amount of value you are looking to add. Being able to generate 6 figures as a lifestyle entrepreneur these days, I mean, I'd lose count as to how many different options you've got. Now, it takes a little bit of groundwork. Why? Because if you're going to learn golf, if you're going to learn chess, if you're going to learn French, if you're going to learn Italian cooking, doesn't matter. You've got to put in the groundwork. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to put in the groundwork. Make sure that if you're going to cooking classes, it's not because you want to learn salsa, because you're learning the wrong things. Or if you want to dance, you're dancing salsa, but you're going to tango classes. No, focus on what's relevant to you. You want to become a podcaster and create a podcast channel? Study the best people out there. Commit yourself. Get excited about it. Put in the work. I've just done my second London Real interview that came out a couple of days ago, and I said to Brian, you can't meditate your way out of a tiger attack. You are meant to be here for a reason. A lot of people sit there and think, oh, I'll just have positive thinking. Let's focus on checks in the mail, and then wonder why we get an eviction notice. Right? You have to be busy. Life will bring you what you are in alignment with when your heart and your mind are connected. Now, the challenge is most people's heart and mind get connected faster in fear about what they don't want and then wonder why it shows up, rather than what it is that they do want and get excited and passionate and inspired about.
Right.